I'm Rebecca Cuthbert for Alien Buddha Press, and I am reading Horror Showdown Finalist number 1, The Madness of George Pollard regarding the return of the whaling ship Essex and the Great Fire of 1846. And for this one, we are down at the pier. July 18th, 1846, Nantucket, the new jail, Vestal Street. The Lord may never forgive me for what I've done, but you didn't see his eyes, Magister. 'Twas young Coffin. I tell you, it was the boy Coffin come back, sailing that beast, to find me, the fount of all their troubles, the wandering and the pain. 26 years it took 'em, but they did it. He did it, leading them all back to our fair harbor and whispering such things as gods and devils would shy away from. 'Twas 3 eves ago, on my regular patrol through the town and the curfew check out to Brant Point Lighthouse. James the keeper'd been stabbed, as you know, stabbed by someone perhaps still on the loose, mind you, and the light put out just as the mists had started to roll in. As things turned out, I should have left and never gone back, but it being in my station, the night watchman of the town, I began an investigation of the site, knowing full well that the murderer might still be afoot. Jim's body was warm, the blood not yet tacky, so this heinous crime had to be done just then. But what to do? The light need must be relit, and the body need must be recovered, and the wanton scum behind both murderous crimes could be waiting in the shadows to jump out at me as well. The light. Tide was coming in, and the light needed to be guide for any ships at the entrance of the harbor. I grabbed my lantern and the lamplighter from the hearth and climbed the stairs. That's when I saw her, my ship. Coming into port through the moonlit fog, I knew her at once, short and stubby, too small for any of today's whalers. Gosh, she was small enough even back then. And on her decks, pale faces glowing through the gray lady's dark veil. I could see them, their eyes pulling me in. I was on that stinking, sinking whaleboat, my mouth full of the oily rank of rotted tortoise flesh and more. Me and Ramsdell. God, why didn't I draw the damned black spot? It eats at me every day, Magister. The taste never leaves my gullet. It's ashes in my mouth. And there they were, Ray, Cole, and most prominently, young Owen Coffin. The light out, I remained hidden in darkness, and yet they fixed their eyes firmly upon me. Across 100 rods of the devil's own shadow, they knew me, lusted for me. I could feel the fire of their gaze. Then she turned. The shade of my Essex. She turned and bore down straightway at the light. The wind lay dead in the mists, yet she turned. Her raggedy sails billowing with the breath of vengeance, she came on. What could I do? My heart racing a quiver, I dropped my eyes in fear and spied the flame of my small lantern and the odd brass curve of the lighter laying askew on the floor. The oil was full in the fountain. I trimmed the wick and relit the flame, bringing the grand Brant Point light back to the night. The Fresnel glare blinded me for a breath or two, and when I was able to see again, the ship was gone. The mist sprawled, crowding into the point, but where the Essex had been, just the swirling fog of the ladies' blankets, embracing our island once more. Magister, I know you've heard all this, as I reported the next morn. Poor James's widow, already gone back to the mainland, and his body with her. Should have laid him to rest here. But that's no mind to the matter at hand, and why you've yanked me out of my bed and drugged me down here to the jail. That matter being, of course, the fire, which I'll get to in my own right as the night watchman of the town. George Pollard, the old Jonah, I've heard him say. Old Jonah is an ill omen himself. Well, this ill omen of a man has had his comeuppance, laid bare to me the very next night and the night thereafter. The light again. It was the damned light again at Brant Point. With James gone, I had to assume the duties, didn't I? Until the town could hire a proper keeper. And so I did, on top of the heap I had as the night constabulary. The evening following my first sighting of that specter of the seas, I was again on my rounds and approaching the light, her flame bright and her lens turning on its clockworks. Straight away, after the old tower bells chimed curfew, I strode up to the light to check her oil stores, when a great gust blew in from the sea and the light flickered, despite the protection of her glass chamber. I entered the house on swift feet and scampered up to close what I could only assume was an open or broken window. And there he was, Owen Coffin. Aged not a day from his youth, not a minute from the moment of his murder. But his eyes, they were deep and cold. The great flames flickered a reflection in pools of abyssal black. He was staring into the fire itself when he moved like lightning and was in my face, his mouth open and screaming, hot blood frothing from his snarling lips. The bittersweet tang of his marrow rose my own gorge, and I couldn't choke it down any longer. Falling to my knees and heaving bile, I grasped for his legs, but my hands fell through the empty spirit. I glanced up, wiping the sour acid from my chin, and still he screamed. I heard echoes from all those years ago, Ramsdell shouting for Coffin to stop shaking, to lie still and accept his fate, and then taking my pistol to deliver the decision of the black spot upon his friend. All of this pouring out of his mouth, stretched wide as the maw of a great beast of the sea preparing to swallow a ship whole. Then he chomped his teeth together with a great clacking, and the light went out. The glass shattered in from the direction of the point, and I knew I must stand to see what could be seen. My body shaking, I could barely pull myself up over the sash, and there she was again, the behemoth of my nightmares, plaguing me all these decades later.